Hello, everybody. This is Blythe Butler calling from the First 2000 Days Network. This presentation is a short overview of what the First 2000 Days Network presented, along with our partners on this project, to the Alberta Education's Curriculum Redesign Expert Working Group panel. So Alberta Education is currently going through a curriculum redesign process for K-12. They have selected expert working groups according to curriculum subject matter throughout those years. And in January, had those expert working groups come together to hear from community, from people in Alberta about what their recommendations would be for curriculum redesign. So the First 2000 Days Network, in partnership with some other organizations, were selected to present to that working group. And this presentation is just to share what we presented to those working groups. So the group I'm referring to in terms of the collaborative effort to present to the curriculum redesign folks was made up of this group. So you have Michelle Gagnon, the president of the Palix Foundation and the Alberta Family Wellness Initiative, Dr. Joanne Baxter, Associate Professor for the Department of Child Studies and Social Work at MRU, and she was key, along with Grant McEwen, in developing the curriculum framework and piloting it. Stacey Collier, Executive Director of Alberta Reads and Calgary Reads, and also is the backbone lead for the third grade reading campaign. Calgary Reads is also, importantly, the fiscal steward and the sort of moral steward for the First 2000 Days Network. We're closely related to the work of Calgary Reads and certainly have been supported by them heavily over the last 5 years. Mr. Craig Foley is the Director of All In for Youth at United Way of Calgary and area. His title has since changed. He's now the Director of Signature Initiatives for United Way of Calgary and area. Myself, Blythe Butler, the network weaver for the First 2000 Days Network, and Janice Kramer, who works on the ECD support team as a community liaison for FCSSAA and all the great work of the coalitions around Alberta and the ECA group, the Alberta Childhood Coalition group. So this slide we actually didn't show on the day because we didn't have enough time, but we just put this slide together to say how are all of the efforts of those individuals linked together. So under the premise of the well-being of Alberta's children and families, you know, how does the curriculum framework impact the frontline ELCC workforce and training component? Where do the family and child serving agencies sit in terms of the core story and the health and research around the social sector? The K-3 component, right, that transition from kids from early years into the formal school system, how does that link? Certainly the third grade reading level stuff comes in there really strongly, and all the indicators for literacy and communication. And so the coalitions are a huge part of that, certainly part of that history, but also, you know, part of the on-the-ground grassroots development of capacity for us to address all these issues. And also, on the other hand, the First 2000 Days in the network, in that blue box on the right, work really hard to try to link, align, and leverage all of this good work that's going on. And that was actually the opportunity we saw to work together on this presentation to the working groups. We all want to contribute and support to policy and provincial strategy for children 0 to 8, and certainly integration between health, human services, and education to that end. So this was a slide just to illustrate, mostly to ourselves, but also I think it's useful to see how those people who are part of this presentation and pulling it together are linked. So most of you know the research from Heckman on the investment in the early years. And I'll just read the quote. Early childhood programs pay dividends for life. We see savings as early as kindergarten, reduced burdens on the schools. We see savings in the teenage years. We see a direct link to higher adult productivity and self-sufficiency. So we were showing this slide to the expert working group panel, and there's apparently 300 people on these expert working groups, and there was about 150 in the room for our presentation. And we didn't know who they were, so we didn't know how much they might have known or not known about early childhood and the impact of early childhood on later life. So we were trying to set the stage with this particular slide to demonstrate the importance of investing in the early years and the fact that in the curriculum redesign, you can't ignore what's gone on in those early years, and that there are a ton of great things going on in the early years that the curriculum redesign folks could take into account. So this was that slide. We saw the opportunity, of course, based on the excellent work of the coalitions and kindergarten teachers in Alberta over the last now 7 years, in terms of gathering data using the EDI to understand where our children are at in 5 key areas of development. So we did reference the initial ECMAP project in terms of getting that baseline EDI data, knowing that less than half of kindergarten children are developing appropriately in all 5 areas of development, and that can be accessed in the ECMAP final report. So we just spoke to the fact that we know the school system is receiving this wave of kids who have gone through some form of early childhood experience, and that we can do a lot better, and that there's a bunch of us trying to figure that out, and hopefully reduce the burden not only on the school system but on the families and children themselves. So our first recommendation was to embed the brain science. That's been amazingly pulled together and articulated by Alberta Family Wellness Initiative and the Palix Foundation. We would love to see that brain science embedded not only in the leadership of the schooling system, but also in the workforce, and also in the actual process of redesigning the curriculum. And we did mention that the Palix Foundation now has their free online certification on brain science, which is available to everyone, and very much encouraged those people listening on the expert working groups to investigate and take that training, and that all workforce should be aware and taking that certification. So that we were just trying to highlight the great work that's already been done on all of our behalves to understand brain science in the context of the early years and how important that is. Our second recommendation was to use the existing early learning and childcare curriculum framework to inform a higher minimum standard for quality ECE curriculum in all ELCC locations provincially, and to link that ELCC curriculum to the K to grade 3 curriculum. So this amazing curriculum framework exists. It's being piloted. It's being funded already by Alberta Education in some locations. It hasn't, and Human Services, hasn't been taken to scale, but it's there, and it's an amazing resource. So anyone looking at redesigning certainly kindergarten curriculum would need to be aware of this resource, and we wanted to advocate for not reinventing the wheel, but drawing on some of the work that's already been done. Our recommendation number 3 was engagement and education of kindergarten teachers on the importance of the EDI and the collection of the EDI for ECD and lifelong outcomes. So we again didn't know who exactly we were speaking to and how much they knew or didn't know about the EDI. We had to assume they knew nothing. So we pointed them to the EDI and also pointed them to the video that the First 2000 Days Network produced in partnership with the Early Childhood Development Coalitions in, I guess, last year, to thank the kindergarten teachers for the work that they did and encourage them to collect the EDI again to the extent that they could. We were recommending in this particular ask a more systematic approach to engaging kindergarten teachers, not only in collecting the EDI, but in their ability to interpret the results, and really embedding it as a practice and understanding what the work of the coalitions can bring to their work and vice versa. So this was really an opportunity to increase that integration. Our fourth recommendation was increased focused alignment, collaboration, funding, assessment, and quality standards for achievement of third grade reading level as a promotive factor for high school graduation. So we know, based on the campaign for third grade level reading out of the US, that reading proficiency by third grade is the most important predictor of high school graduation and career success. So currently in Alberta, we don't have a jurisdiction-wide standard, common standard that the province can go to specifically on reading proficiency at 3rd grade. There's lots of great work going on, but no sort of common data. And so we're really trying to advocate for that so that all of us can do our work better, and we can certainly embed that literacy focus in the K-3 curriculum redesign so that we have a more cohesive approach to 3rd grade reading levels and design interventions and improvements accordingly. We mentioned that all of what we're presenting is feeding into and hopefully supporting Alberta Education's own business plan. So this is a pull directly from the most recent Alberta Education business plan. And outcome number 3, key strategy 3.2, states to build an integrated early learning and care system by collaborating with human services and health. So this was a really real opportunity for all of us working in the early years to say, we can help with that. We can help you achieve that goal. Interestingly, currently, and there's an opportunity here, the human services and health business plans don't have that same reciprocal strategy in their business plans. So there is work to be done in terms of integrating at a business plan level, at the highest levels of the ministry, what our focus is on early learning and care, and certainly early learning being, in terms of curriculum, a big focus, obviously. So there's an opportunity there for all of us to advocate for more integrated business plans around our youngest citizens. And the wording matters, and we can all come together to help. So on that note, our final recommendation was to design a governing philosophy of child and family well-being that would guide integrated governance, funding, planning, management, and evaluation across ministries. And one way of doing that, from our perspective, as a suggestion, would be to develop a children's ministry that spans 0 to 8 years and integrated accountability across ministries regarding children and families. So there's lots of jurisdictions who have this model or a similar one. And we, as a group, would advocate for that approach for the early years and certainly into kindergarten to grade 3. Now, that's certainly beyond the scope of the curriculum redesign, folks, but it is a theme certainly in the work that the First 2000 Days Network is doing, the work that Calgary Reads is doing, certainly supported by United Way and others in this idea that would be an opportunity for our system in terms of how we look at, how we understand what's going on for kids. And this is the quote that we read out. You think that because you understand one, that you must therefore understand two, because one and one make two. But you forget that you must also understand and. And we spoke to the fact that the early childhood development system and sector and all of us working on in this way, we're the and. We can actually help figure out the and part of how to integrate 0 to 5 with K to 3 and K to 12 and beyond, and that there's a lot of work already being done, and maybe the biggest work we have to do is integrate and help one another see the value of integrating 0 to 5 and the school system. This final slide, I know there's a lot on there and I won't go into it in detail, was not shown to the expert working groups, and it really is just a thought experiment on how you would start to map out what an integrated system of serving children 0 to 8 within a jurisdiction such as the province might look like. And of course, actually implementing this is where, that's where all the work is. But this was our sort of initial attempt at articulating, what would that system look like? Where would the integration and feedback loops need to be? What potential ministries would need to sit in this overarching ministry looking at children and families? and how do you establish those links? So it's definitely just an initial draft, but it did help us think through what that might look like, and happy to talk to anyone more about what's included here. And it's certainly not meant to be anything final. It's just an idea, but it gives you a sense of what the kind of things the network is talking about at an advocacy level around systems change. So I think that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll look forward to your feedback and your comments, and hopefully this gives you a better sense of some of the things the network is up to in this amazing world of early childhood. Thanks.